Hi everyone, it's Nana, Foxy Mama 365. So we're back again with a recent story that literally broke yesterday in Nigeria. It's pretty much a story on Why Niger TV, and it is the wife of popular musician Timi Dakolo, his wife Busola, I think that's her name, Dakolo, and she is accusing allegedly one Pastor Biodun Fatoyingbo of raping her when she was as young as 17. And this is a pastor from a popular church in Abuja in Nigeria, Koza, allegedly. So she sat with today Chidio, I think that's his name, Chidio or something like that. And he did a great interview. They were sat in the church, and it was a 2 hour long interview. So it was quite an earful, but it was good to actually hear it from beginning to end. That way, you're not just making a conclusion or judging. And I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to say someone did this or someone didn't do that and ask questions and all of that. That's not, I'm just here to report and say and how we can pretty much prevent and how we can move forward as a nation and as a people. So she says when she was about 17, she was introduced to this church. Then the church's name was was Divine Delight Club. It was like a club, and it was by a young pastor. Then it hadn't become the big church that it is today. And she was a little reluctant. She was still in secondary school at this point, and she had been going to what we call the Scriptural Union, SU Church, so which was kind of reserved. And she was like, oh, this church where they're dancing and they're very outgoing and they're singing and praising. So it was kind of like new to her. So she says, well, her sisters dragged her there that she will enjoy it. So she kind of enjoyed it the first time, and he asked her to come and sing in the ministry, and she did, even though she says she couldn't, she's not really a great singer, but she did. And then she subsequently went back to school, and then after she finished from school, the period while she was waiting to enter into university, she continued with the church, and she started worshiping there and was relating with the pastor, and the pastor became family friends, and he would come to their house. They would sing and rehearse for different things. Her sisters too got into evangelism, and then lo and behold, one day her mom travels out with her younger sister. I think she says there are 4 or 5 of them. 5 of them, I believe she says that there are. And her mom was away from the house. Her dad was not a constant figure in the house. And the pastor Biodun came. All this is allegedly, okay? So she says Pastor Biodun comes into the house and opens the front door and goes at her, rips off her pants. She says she was still a virgin, and she bled, and he asked her to just comply and do whatever he asked her to do. She was in her 90, but she had her underwear on, and he pulled that out and pulled out his private part and penetrated her. She said she bled, she didn't scream, she tried to muffle, but he was like, just comply, give me what I want, which she did, and it happened. And after that he was like, oh, I think whether she said some sweet words to her, and literally she was in shock pretty much, and she didn't know what to do. She had been bleeding on the floor, there was blood on the floor, so he left, and she didn't know where he went to, but he came back a few minutes after with crest. So this crest has become a big issue, because we're like, what was the crest for? Any which way, he brought the crest allegedly, according to her, and gave her and asked her to drink, and literally downed it into her. So people are saying, was that meant to be a form of contraception, or what was it? And somebody was trying to explain online and say that, yeah, crest had some acidic. Any which ways, crest, please, is not a form of contraception. Okay, but I've also heard people say allegedly. What if there's a possibility that he might have put something in it because she didn't know what she was asked to just drink it? What if he had crushed something in it? What if he had put some pills, who knows, But this is all, again, allegedly. Don't come for me, okay? So pretty much after that happened, he leaves her, and she's in shock. She goes down, she scrubs everywhere, and she dashes to her mom's room, and she's in shock. She's crying because she was still a virgin, and so it was still a shock to her, and she was holding to hope. She was holding to hold on to her virginity till she got married, and all her sisters had tried to encourage her to do that, even when if she had a boyfriend, so she was kind of sad, and she didn't know how to deal with all of that. Anyway, she goes and has a shower. She had a shower like 10 times by the end of that day. That this happened. I think she said in the early hours of the morning at about 7 a.m. when it happened. So all through up until 12 a.m. She was only her sister in the house. The house was empty pretty much. And her sister didn't know anything happened. She might have been asleep. But the way the house was, you couldn't hear, something. If something was going on downstairs and you were upstairs, you couldn't literally hear anything. So she said her sister didn't know of it. So she just stayed in her mom's room. She cried. She had a shower over and over again. She said that more than 10 times. She was a very young girl, so she didn't really know how to handle it. And this happened, she says, on like a Monday or so. And by Wednesday, she was reluctant to go to the midweek service, but she did go. And when she got there, she was still like afraid because she felt the relationship she had with the pastor was more like a father figure. He had kind of like coaxed her into, like pulling her guards down and trusting in him. And she had started seeing him as someone that was meant to like be her protector, a father figure in her life. And he happened to have done this. So she still couldn't understand. She was scared, and she was wondering, could he possibly do this again, or could he send people to hurt her, harm her family? So she didn't say anything to anyone. A lot of people always ask that question, that, oh, why don't you speak up? Why do you wait for 5 years? Why do you wait for 10 years? And who are we really to ask anyone when when they find their voice, or when they find the confidence to actually speak up? So but we do all try and say that that women should try the earlier, because that's the best way to get evidence. When you look right now, like there's in the US right now, a lady came out last week accusing Donald Trump of rape, and this happened over 20-30 years in a big store, and she was alone with him, and she's never spoken about it, but she did tell a friend or two, and those ones have collaborated her story. So she came out in a book and mentioned it. Of course, Donald Trump came out and said no, she wasn't his type. Anyway, so those are the advantages of, if you speak up, because you can still gather evidence then, if you have someone you can actually trust. So she now goes on to say his wife, who had just had a baby, so he was married at that time, allegedly. All this is allegedly, okay? So she says that she meets up with the wife in church, and for some reason the wife says, oh, she needs to come home, she needs help with the baby. Can she come and stay overnight with them? So she does go. And while she's there, she's like wondering, is she Omodo? Omodo means house girl. Why are they asking her? She's not that great a cleaner. So why? So she found it strange. But her sister said, oh, that's what happens in the church. Again, I wonder, this is just my thought. Why do people go to pastors' houses to go and clean and cook and all of that? You just... I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm just saying, when you can prevent, if you can, those are kind of preventive measures, try not to put yourself in a position. But sometimes, it does happen. But like in the church, they say, the sister said a lot of women do go to help and stay overnight, which I thought was weird, to actually sleep overnight. Well, anyways, that was what was the norm. So she went. She was in the car with the pastor, his wife, and the baby, and they got to his house. And sometime in the night, she was carrying the baby, and just before they went to bed, the pastor came in and says, oh, and she's apparently in the room with the pastor's wife and the baby, and she's clutching the baby. And the pastor comes in and says, oh, he has made up the guest room for her to go and sleep in. And she's like, no, she's not going to go there. She wants to sleep on the same bed with the pastor's wife. I think her name is Dilly. Pastor Dilly is her name. So the wife was like, oh, leave her to stay if she wants to stay. And she insisted. So eventually the pastor was like, okay. And he leaves her be. So she sleeps in the bed with the pastor's wife and the baby, allegedly. And then the following morning, she gets up, she's cleaning, some visitors come. And the pastor, she sees him early in the morning, and he's like, oh, nobody refuses me, or nobody can turn me away, that he always gets his way. And so at this point, she cleans up, the guest is there, and they all head out. And she's like, no, she was obstinate. She didn't want to go with the pastor in his car. He said, oh, he's going to go out since she was leaving. He was going to drop her off at home, or drop her off at the junction. And she's like, no, she didn't know. And his wife said no, coaxed her into going. with the pastor, which she did. So as she did that, the other guest too was in the car, and he or she alighted first, and they moved on to the next junction, or yeah, and they moved on to the next junction. And when they got there, the pastor diverted and didn't go to the junction where they were meant to go, and it was like a very quiet area. And at that point, he grabs her and pulls her out of the car and starts to rape her again. Now this thing has happened. This is twice in the same week, and she's still 17. So which is kind of really sad, allegedly. It's all allegations, so we really can't, even though most of the time we as women, I will always stand with a fellow woman when she comes out, because I know how hard and what such a struggle it is to actually tell anybody, let alone come out to the whole world, or to the, and knowing that you're going to be bashed, you're going to be bullied, there's so much. So I really, I clap for her. I applaud her. I applaud her husband, Timi. I applaud both of them. Thank you for standing up for your wife. Thank you for being a great man, a great husband. So any which way, so she says he holds her hands and he throws her on the bonnet, and he has his way again with her. And then he actually now takes her home. And on the way, he's saying, oh, I love you. I think you're this and that. He's whispering. And she says she's literally quiet. She didn't say a word. At this point, she's scared pretty much. And she is wondering, why is this happening again? But she gets home again and she doesn't tell anybody. And she starts, crying. And she's just like, she doesn't want to continue with the church. She's done. So she says the following week she did not go to church, and that the pastor actually came back to her house to look for her. And she was like, oh, and he was like, oh, how are you? We didn't see you. And I'm like, really? So it's really, it's a heart-wrenching story, but it's something that if you can listen to everything, it'll be good to give you a perspective. So Chude did an excellent job. He actually asked her a few questions, like, why did you go back? Why didn't you tell anyone? He also asked a very pertinent question, which was, oh, when this one had happened to you, what were your reactions? How did you feel? She felt God didn't love her. She felt God, favored him above her. And she probably wasn't, she just had a lot of emotions going through her at that point in time. And of course, when this came out yesterday, there has been so much on social media. Everybody's had an opinion. Yeah, this is the world of social media, okay? So everybody has an opinion. So he asked her also, what was the motivation for coming out? And she says that there was a narrative that was allegedly being pushed by some church members or by the pastor, what's his name? Biodun, was saying that they had had an affair. And I'm thinking anyways, I'm like, you had an affair, but she's 17 years old. How can you have an affair with her? That's illegal, one. And then two, you're a married man. What are you talking about? And you're a pastor, so should you be having an affair with this young girl? I don't think so. So he's saying that, oh, and then there's also another allegation about some money being diverted. And she's like, no, when the church started, they didn't have money. That literally, they were like helping the church out, and I understand, how you start from a home and the church begins to grow before this. So by the time this whole thing happened, the church was still small, and pretty much nobody really knew of the church. So they were like kind of helping the church out. So there was no money being, some people were saying that she was paid, or and some people even said she wanted to be married because he didn't marry her, so she was angry. And I'm like, but she's a married woman, for heaven's sake, and she's married to one of the top, well-known artists in Nigeria. So that doesn't make any sense. Any which way, she's speaking her truth, and her truth is her truth, and she's standing by her words, okay? So, and then of course something about also people saying he needs Timi, because apparently Timi had put out some tweets talking about, he didn't name the person, but he was saying people that you're, talking about what had happened to his wife, and just kind of putting some things out there. And people were now coming back at him, and they were asking him, though, he should go and check his wife, and maybe and DNA of their children, and paternity. And so at this point she's just had enough. It was just something that just kept on, and she's like, I've been keeping quiet for a long time, and now I'm hearing other cases, other people are talking. There was another Essie Walter, I believe about 3 or 4 years ago, she came out, and alleged that the pastor had taken advantage of her. And I remember reading that story on City People, and I remember feeling really sad for her, but I know she also got a backlash for doing that as well. Any which way, so she says that that's why she's speaking out. She just wants to put an end to it, because later on, she says she goes on a trip to Lagos with her older sister, and her older sister is saying, hey, I had a dream, and in my dream you were crying and there was blood, and the pastor was sitting right there, and she also says that did he harm her? She has been crying. So she says she was praying, and she had been praying and crying. She wasn't really praying. So the sister says, girl, this is not prayer matter anymore. Okay, what is going on? What has happened? And she opens up to her sister, and sister says, no, we got to go back to Ilorin. We have to go back. So they go back. This older sister tells the other siblings, and the brother is very mad. He carries a penknife and drags her, and they go straight to Pastor Biodun's house. And he comes out as soon as he sees them, apparently not wanting them to come into the house because his wife was at home. So he comes out and he starts to beg, allegedly, and he's begging and saying, oh, it was the work of the devil as usual. This devil. One day he will rest, eh? So they say it's the work of the devil, and he, that let it be past, that he's a changed man, that he's also seeking the face of God, and he's also trying to change. And then apparently they say, okay, they should go, they will talk about it, and he came to that's Pastor Biodun now comes to the house the very next day, I think she says, and when he comes to the house, something strikes me. She says that there was a pastor that was in the house. She said, I think it was Pastor Wole Shoiton. And he was actually in the house when it happened. And then he's now currently the Port Harcourt minister of the Church of Koza, and that he actually heard everything, and he also pleaded with her not to say a word, and that he also initially said he was going to leave the church, and she left them to talk, and while they were talking, he came back and spoke to her and said he's no longer going to leave the church because the pastor had knelt down and said, Pastor Biodun had knelt down and said, oh, the church they needed him because he was a prayer minister, and they needed him, and they needed the family, that what would the church be without the family, and all of that. So they kind of agreed, and they also said that the next day they came to the house to talk with her, and at this point, Pastor Wole Shoiton was there, and then they say Minister Flo, who is also her cousin, but not a distant cousin, apparently, was also there. So you actually have witnesses, so if the police wants to take this up, there are actually witnesses that actually, can, not family members, not just family members, but other people that actually know, so it will be, I'm hoping that it's not just going to be a thing of the church just, taking action, or the men of God taking action, or no. At the moment, Khan has said that they're not involved in any of this, little dominion churches, and what they do is up to them. So we don't even want them to get involved, okay? We actually want the police or people in law enforcement, to actually take this on. That's what we are hoping for. Whew, child. Any which way. Now, as yesterday, there was so much back and forth going on. So, of course, the pastor has come up with his own statement saying, I'm going to read just a little brief part of it because it's like 2 pages, okay? It's on the internet if you're that interested in reading it. He says, Busola Dakolo, who has made this false allegation, and her family attended the church during the early start of the church, and hold on. And I had never had any private interactions with her beyond my pastoral duties. Okay? That's what he says. He also says that I am aware that there's a recent media publication on YouTube by Y Niger, operated by and owned by Red Media Group, which shows an interview by Chude Jinomu with Busola Dakolo. Prior to now, we had adhered to our policy of ignoring rumors from social media accounts, as we know that several statements have been made to extort the church of money and myself through blackmail, harassment, and intimidation. We have refused time and again to accede to their request, which has infuriated them over time. Because of this, they have gotten more aggressive. unlike previous statements where innuendos were used and there was no direct mention of myself or the church. The recent video released on YouTube has now made direct criminal allegations against me in the interview granted by Busola Dakolo, which are fallacious, non-existent, and which are all denied in every measure. So he's denying it. As an individual and as a church, we love and support people, and we will never condone any form of abuse, rape, harassment, or intimidation of anyone. So he says on his Twitter, he says, I have never raped before, not ever, even as an unbeliever. Yeah. Then towards the end, he says to all our members, which I find very interesting, to all our members and those supporting God's work, I want to assure you that we will fight this and the Lord will vindicate us. This has always been an intention to attack the church, and this is the intention of the adversary. Oh, this poor devil. Any which ways, that was his stand. And of course, you know, as social media goes, immediately you have people like Renal Mockery coming out and immediately saying, oh, he doesn't like the Pastor Biodun, he doesn't, you know, he actually dislikes him, but however, he's, you know, in his corner, he doesn't believe it and all of that, and he's trying to, you know, which I thought was really, really silly. Yeah. And then you have someone like Wale Jana, who's the owner of Sapphire Group. Sapphire Group, apparently they do a lot of business in Nigeria and they have a lot of brand ambassadors. So he also came out and made a statement. I'm not even going to bother with that because it was just like, pretty much he was just backing up his church. He's a member of the Koza Church in Abuja, and he backed up this pastor and he was like, no, people should rise up. And he really, really did. He said a lot of hateful things towards Busola and her husband, and saying stuff like, oh, maybe they had, he just said a lot of hateful things, and I'm not even going to, you know, go there. But as of today, he has come out with an apology, okay? That is the power of social media, because you had a lot of people that were in Busola's corner coming out, you know, it was little, but eventually a lot of celebrities, musicians, actors, and, you know, people just pretty much were like, oh, you know, why is he saying this, you know, and were like hashtags, you know, we support Busola and Timi Dakolo, pretty much, you know. You had, and I want to say a big up to people like Cici, I think they are Cici from Big Brother, who spoke up early, you know. I really applauded her because she's a brand ambassador for Wale Jana, who is the Sapphire Group, you know, and she still was able to like say, hey, whether you're giving me money or not, this is what I believe. So big ups to her. Then we also have Don Jazzy, MI spoke out about him being Church of Satan, and Church of Satan responded to him. Oh, child, social media was on fire yesterday, you know. And of course, we have people like Abike Dabri saying women must stand together. But I hope that beyond just saying and tweeting something, I really hope she's able to mobilize the police to actually, you know, get involved, because that is the only way. You know, you can't just say women should just support each other. We do that, we try all of that, but you know what? Unless the laws are written, you know, to kind of, you know, elevate women, to kind of help women, to support women, to actually believe them. I remember like a month or two ago, some women were rounded up in a nightclub in Abuja, and the police that are meant to be protecting the women were actually the ones that were perpetrating some rape, allegedly. Okay, and the women came out, they were arrested, they were called prostitutes, and they said, oh, they were just attending a party at the club. You know, so when you have things like that going on, where you have situations where even the police is perpetrating these kind of criminal acts, then where do we go as women? Who stands for us? You know, so we hope that people like Abike Dabri that have voices, the women's affairs, you know, we hope they take things like this more seriously.